Hey, good evening, everybody. This is the Encounter Brigade. It's Captain Joe, joined tonight by Jonny TwoBears and Angie. It's most of y'all may have seen last week was our first episode, and I want to say I am extremely impressed with the amount of feedback that we've gotten. I know Angie kind of really keeps up with a lot of the different pages. Angie, well, what have you been seeing and hearing from folks that you know in the community?
Just a lot of positive feedback. People saying they enjoyed the video, can't wait to see another episode. Seeing people coming forward now that haven't been able to really talk before. Got a couple of guys from the military that I've talked to that's thinking about coming forward. So just a lot of positive feedback.
Wow, that's great. And Johnny, anything from you?
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. One individual that I've talked to directly, and a couple from our inside contact guy Levi. He's got two gentlemen that are. I know at least one is former military. I think he was a ranger also, and like we're talking about full on occupation at these people's houses, or
Wow.
on their properties.
Wow.
So I
Wow.
know one of them's pretty much chomping at the bit to get his story out, but we're waiting on a few things. So
Yeah. Yeah. I had a conversation with a soldier who was stationed up in Pacific Northwest, Fort Lewis, and he kind of made this post on another Bigfoot site and whatnot, and of course everyone's like, "Oh, share your share your story," and he said, "Man, this is you know back in the '80s, like right over time frame St. Helens eruption," and and I kind of reached out to him on Messenger just directly, explained who I was, um, who I served with, and lo and behold, obviously up there as well. I served there and in Fort Lewis, but I told him about my incident, my sighting on the range, here, and I think he picked up on the lingo that I was using, and that kind of legitimized, you know, what I saw that day.
right,
Everything from the small arms impact, and so he just kind of referred to that, hey, him and some other soldiers were tasked of running an ammo um, collection point, and Johnny, you kind of know what that's at. When you go to the range,
hmm
you have a group of individuals. Their whole job is to sit there and um, guard and distribute the ammunition. And then at the end of the day, they also are responsible for taking or receiving in all the spent shell casings or brass. Um, in true military fashion, when you go to range, uh, you you're kind of expected to use it all, right? I mean, so if they give you 10,000 rounds, you shoot all 10,000 rounds, and uh, you don't bring back no live ammo because that's a pain in the butt, because then you
right,
got to figure out how many how many rounds fired and how many rounds unfired, and then you have to separate the two. So it's easier to say we shot it all.
right,
Um, so him and these other soldiers were told, by the platoon sergeant, go ahead and just, you know, get out there and use up all the ammo. And as they were doing this, they were shooting, multiple calibers and whatnot, downrange, and a very large something. I mean, screamed uh, several times at them, um, and it was
where was it at when it screamed
it
at him?
it was downrange in the woodline, you know,
Okay,
but it
like
was
close to the berm they were shooting at.
yes, and yeah, but it was not a person, and so I mean, this guy's held this story for, like I said, 20 years. Then he happened to, tell his kids when they were older about it, and they just kind of laughed it off and whatnot. But I think his and I conversation the other day, you know, was to let him understand that, hey, you know what, I'm military too. my sighting, my incident was on a range as well. So
Hmm.
it can happen, and in Pacific Northwest, the uh, Fort Lewis area, even in my day, there were always talks and rumors. And I remember, I was a young soldier back then. There was always talks about, oh, Bigfoot. If you see him, leave him alone. Blah blah blah. And when I was a young kid, young soldier, I'm like, "Ugh, whatever. I mean, you
Right.
didn't think of it. You didn't believe in it. It is one of those things. Oh yeah, I believe it. I ever saw one. But every so often, you always get this like, hey, someone saw one, or something. But and you just kind of blow it off because you're young and dumb back then. Um, but anyways, so tonight's episode, we really want to focus on Jonny TwoBears, um, his experiences. Uh, Jonny is who I reached out to with my sighting. Jonny, he was he was a Marine. He was easy for me to relate the story uh, of my sighting to him. He understood it. But what's fascinating is where he lives, and where he goes out and does recreational activities, or um, he has repeated uh, in, I don't know if encounters, incidents. Johnny's got three full-grown German shepherds. And
Yeah.
so in the back of my head, like he's telling me stories, and Angie, too, when he tells us, hey, this happened like this weekend, or this happened the other night, and I'm like, at first, I try to think, okay, maybe it's a homeless camp off in the woods,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
a group,
I've been down every single one of these
yeah,
roads
yeah,
trying to scratch it off the list.
exactly. I think, okay, maybe it's just it's some hungry homeless guy that just happens to come around like his chicken coops at night, or you know, but yet he's got three full grown German shepherds, and um, I would think there's a easier place to get to, or another
Well,
house to
that
go to.
that and this hungry homeless guy just he likes to just mess with the coop. He doesn't actually take the chickens.
Yeah,
So
so yeah, you know, Johnny, go ahead and tell us, about a little bit about your background, when all this started. When did you start trying to put these puzzles together? And you're still doing it every day. I mean, even just up until
yeah,
yesterday, you're out.
I'm full blown at this point. So now that I've kind of put all the pieces together, but and I told you when we when you brought up doing the podcast that I know there's a lot of people out there that they only want to hear the Bigfoot stuff and they don't want to hear anything else. Because I know there's people who believe in all different types, whether it's from nothing but a primate to it's some type of human to a Nephilim or even aliens and everybody in between. I'm going to stick to the Sasquatch stuff tonight, but I've got to tell what happened before all this started because it's just part of the story. May not even be connected at all, but it's just part of it. And I don't know whether it comes down to the area or what. But basically, and I've got a list, it's basically just an outline, try to keep everything in order. And there was a long time to where I didn't document anything, where stuff was just happening because I didn't know what it was. But basically, it all started in 2012 with I call it the orb incident. And basically, it was a large orb that was outside that eventually was in the house 30 minutes later that my wife saw, and it was real small. And I saw it again 4 hours later in the house. And then all throughout the week, I saw it several more times. That one incident, it made sense to me. It was at a very volatile time, and it was almost like a I'll go into detail later on. It felt more like kind of like a spiritual intervention, if you will. It changed things. I don't know. There's a lot of details. Anyway, that was the first time in 2012 anything weird happened. Up until this, I didn't believe in anything weird. I am Christian, but it's even that belief was stepping out on a limb for me. Okay, that's as far out as I could go with anything I couldn't put my hands on. But then in 2012, that happened. And then since 2012 up until now, there's been 7 people between my family and my neighbors who have seen orbs. They've been several different colors. They've been in different spots. My old neighbor that lived here, he actually had a video that he showed me before I even got into any of this stuff. And I wish to God I knew how to get a hold of him and then see if he still got the video. But that's where it all started. And like I said, it didn't, just because orbs and there's Sasquatch activity in the same place does not even mean that there's any connection. It just means they're in the same spot. I've never seen them both together. In fact, it's been a while since I've seen the orbs. But that's where all this got real weird. And I didn't know anything about it. I'd never done any kind of research into orbs or Bigfoot or anything. Where the Bigfoot activity came in, it all started with my neighbors, basically. There was a bunch of activity at night going on over there.
How far away does your neighbors live, Johnny?
Their house is 150 yards from my house. There's a little wood line, and then on the other side of that wood line, I have neighbors, and then there's another neighbor about 100 yards in front of them. Okay, so there's only 2 neighbors, and we're back kind of like in this little hole. So there's 3 houses. Well, the very first thing, they had activity going on over there. They said they never saw it. They didn't see anybody at that time. People were banging on the house at night, throwing sticks at the windows, stuff like that. I'm like, what in the world's going on? But the first weird thing was my neighbor called me over there, and I walked over, and below his daughter's window, right at the tree line, there was a big worn spot in the grass. It looked like a big, huge dude was sitting down against the pine tree, and it looked like he'd been doing that every night for a month. I mean, it was just worn perfectly right. And it was real disturbing because he shows me this, and I'm like, dude, who is sitting in the wood line right below your daughter's window? He's like, I don't know, man, but this is weird. We got to figure this out.
Johnny, was she a teenager or a preteen?
Yes.
Okay.
And I didn't put that together till later on. But so all that was going on. Then the first thing that actually happened over here was the dogs went crazy. I came outside. I went to my fence, and there was a stack of pallets right at the fence, and they were barking off to the wood line. Well, right when I went to step on those pallets to shine my light, I heard a wood knock, and it was like a baseball bat on a telephone pole. But at the time, I didn't know what a wood knock was. Like, my kids watched Finding Bigfoot, so I had seen a little bit of that or whatever. I had no idea. Now, if I heard it today, I'd be like, yes, man, I hope I got that recorded because it's so obvious. But again, I didn't know what was going on. So that was weird. That threw me off. I'm like, I couldn't figure out what kind of sound it was, whatever. It's still a human. So I went and got these solar lights, and I put them, there's a trail, and this trail comes into play a lot throughout the years. But basically, there's my house, their house, and then right behind their house is like a small pine thicket, and there's little trails back there. Well, that kind of lines up with my house. So if I go out of my gate, I go to the trailhead and I walk down and I get back in that little pine thicket. Well, I got these big solar lights, and I put them about 20 feet up in this tree. and they're sensor lights. Well, there was a couple nights that they went off, and I'd go running out there and try to figure out what was going on. Well, I never could see anything. Well, I started noticing the light wasn't going off anymore after a couple days. Well, I went to check it, and the lights were turned up, straight up in the air. Now, a human could take something and do that. Still human. Okay, I'm still like, whatever. So then I get a phone call one night. My wife says, "Hey, there's somebody. I can hear the footsteps. They're walking behind. We used to have an old car that her grandmother left over here. They're behind the old car." And I'm like, "Are you sure it's not an animal?" She said, "No, it's a human. It's on 2 feet, and I could see the shadow. It's like they're peeking around the car." I said, "Go in there, get your pistol." At this time, still a human. I told her, step on the back porch. I told her exactly where to aim, which was nowhere near where the car actually was. I said, "Fire 2 shots." I stayed on the phone with her. She fired 2 shots. Nothing happened. Well, the neighbors wound up calling the cops. And the cops showed up. And
Yeah.
but actually, by this time, my other neighbors had been calling the cops over and over again. It was like almost once a week that it got so frequent that they were getting messed with. And the first time anybody saw anything, my neighbor said something hit the side of the house. He came outside, and way up the trail where it kind of goes to the back of a neighborhood, way uphill, there was a big, huge dude in all black standing there in the middle of the trail. And all he did was look at me and then step off. And he said, "I just cussed him out." I'm like, "Okay, big dude in all black. All right, we got a description of what's going on." The next thing, I think kind of what tipped me off was one of the nights that I went over there after all this stuff was happening. And
over to the neighbors?
Yeah, over the neighbors when all this stuff, because every bit of this was pretty much over there for the most part.
Okay.
So I go over there one afternoon to look around, to see what's going on, see if I can find any footprints. Why is this going on all the time? I'm thinking maybe it's kids, like you said, bums. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
So I'm back there, and the yard's kind of up, and they've got dogs. They had probably about 4 or 5 dogs at that time. I walked next to the fence, and I walked down the hill, and I came back up the hill, and I noticed when I got to the top of the hill, the dogs started barking instantly. Well, I tested. I walked back down the hill a little bit, and I walked back up. Well, obviously they were seeing me. Well, I happened to look down, and there was 3 stacks or 3 different sets of these little cross sticks that were about 12 inches long, and they looked like little teepees. And there was 3 of them spread out over about 10 feet. And I got to looking at that, and I'm like, that's crazy, because if you stop before you get to these little markings, the dogs can't see you. But as soon as you go past the markings, the dogs start barking. And I'm like, man, who is spending this much time out here to figure this out? This is nuts. I showed my neighbor, blah, blah, blah. And then I was also finding structures behind the house. And at this point, I kind of think it was already in the back of my head that something more is going on, especially when I started seeing the structures. And I didn't know a whole heck of a lot more. But at this point, I had actually heard enough on finding Bigfoot, out of all places, that some of this was actually, and I'm like, there's no way that's what this is. So I'm still kind of putting it back in the back of my mind. It's still a human, you know. Well, after that was the aha moment. Is me and my son, I got interested in finding these little structure thingies. So me and my son went through the woods, probably about a half a mile, and we came up on the top of this ridge. We'd never been there, and there were structures everywhere, and it was just crazy looking.
So you say structures, like what? What kind of structure? Like the teepee,
Just
the wood.
teepees, stick structure stuff balancing on top of each other. Some of the pictures, I'll post some of the pictures later.
Yep.
But your basic stick structures.
Okay.
That's basically all it was. And at the time, I still didn't know what it was, but it was symmetrical enough to where, all right, somebody made this. Well, while I'm looking around, I find my first track, and it's about 13 inches long. It's probably 6 inches wide at the heel. I'm not really sure how, but it was only three toed, but it was huge. So it's probably about this. I think there's a picture up, but I'll put that later. Anyway, it looked to me like when whatever this thing was, it stepped, its heel went down in a hole.
Hmm.
So there's no telling how big the actual track was. But that was the aha moment. Okay. For me, it was like, oh my God, this is a Bigfoot track.
So
And
yeah.
I
So
and I
was not a boot track. Wasn't like
no. And I'll post
okay.
it.
Yep.
After this, I'll put it on the Facebook page. It's my very first track. I still got it. I have found that particular track, and it's
Three-toe.
the left foot, the three-toed track. I found it 3 different times in
Wow.
this area over the years. I have
Okay.
never found a right foot with three toes from this individual, which I don't. I have found other tracks that are normal, but for whatever reason, this one left foot on this creature only has three toes, from what I've found.
Dang.
So that to me was the wow. I really need to start looking into this. This could really be a possibility.
Yeah.
But I didn't say anything to anybody. Like I didn't run. I never went and told my neighbors that, hey, I thought, even after, even where I'm at now, like I never told my neighbors because I just didn't think they'd believe me. Number one, and it's
Yeah.
just crazy.
Yeah.
But so we got the structures. Now this was another aha moment. So all this crazy stuff still going on, and I'm sitting in the house and I hear 3 gunshots. It's nighttime. I grab my gun. It's over at my neighbor's house. I run down. I go down there. He's standing in his yard. I said, dude, what happened? He said, somebody threw, and I can't remember. It was either a stick or a rock at my daughter's window again. So basically, when that happened, she told him, and he ran outside. He had an AR-15, and he shot a couple rounds into the ground. Well, he had called the cops again. Well, I'm standing there with a gun. So I'm like, well, look, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back towards my house. I'm going to get in that wood line, and I'm just going to watch over you until the cops get here because I don't want to be standing here with a gun when the cops get here.
Yeah.
So I make my way back around, and I am probably around 50 yards away. I'm on one knee, and I'm just watching over him. He's standing right. He's got a gun on his hip, a pistol, but he's standing out in the middle, right in the middle of his yard, and he's just standing there waiting on the cops. And I'm looking around, and all of a sudden the stick is probably 14 inches long and about that big around comes flying from the wood line, which is about 80 feet away from where he's at, and hits him dead in the chest. And
Wow.
it scares the ever-loving crap out of him. It hits him in the chest and bounces off. Well, he starts to run, and he falls trying to get up the steps. And I just
Wow.
shake my head. I'm like, I can't believe that just happened. So that was another like.
So you saw
What?
the actual. You saw the actual.
I saw the
hit him.
stick. I saw the stick hit him right in his chest and bounce off.
Wow.
So at this point, I'm like, I cannot believe this is happening. What human? I didn't see a Bigfoot throw a stick, but you got a really, 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 really dumb person out there throwing sticks at people that just shot a gun.
Yeah.
So-
yeah. Armed. Yeah. Some armed
And
individual.
he's armed.
Yeah.
So that happens. And let's see, never hit a stick. Okay, so that happens. And I didn't even go over there that night because the cops showed up. And I asked him later on what happened. And he just told me the same thing I watched happen. He said, I can't believe that happened. I can't believe they threw a stick at me. And I'm like, yeah, dude, that's pretty brazen. I can't believe that. But that was pretty much it. Still, I didn't say anything to him about me thinking it was Bigfoot, you know.
Yeah.
But so the next thing, then for whatever reason, stuff started happening around my property. This whole time, not very much happened at all at my property. Every once in a while, the dogs would go crazy. I had the one wood knock, but another night, and it's always the dogs. If there's an unauthorized grasshopper in my yard, they're gonna let me know. But it's completely different when I think it's them. They act completely different, and it's taken me a long time.
The dogs act different.
Yes, they act different, especially my female. She seems to be more on to their activity than the others. The other ones just seem to follow her. But I've got one specific. I've got two females, but the older female, she seems to be locked on to what's going on.
All right, so she's the alpha female. So
right, she's the alpha female, and so they go nuts. I come running out here again, and I see where she's standing up against the fence. Well, it's kind of near my chicken coop area is now, but all that was nothing but a bunch of pine saplings and briars, real thick there. It was before I cleaned it all out. So I got a flashlight. I walk out there, and I can hear large, heavy bipedal steps. And it's crunch, crunch, crunch. Well, I shine my light, and it stops walking. And I'm shining around, shining around. I turn my light off. It starts walking again. Crunch, crunch, crunch. I shine my light on it again. It stops walking. Now, it does this probably 4 or 5 times until it is out of earshot. And the crazy part about it is it's so thick in there that, like my kid, my 8-year-old son, I could not have sent him in there and say, don't make anything move. It's the only thing that came to mind, and I know it sounds woo. That's really the only kind of woo thing I've really experienced with them is being that close and only being able to hear them. I didn't see a thing. I didn't see a bush move, a stick move, a leaf, nothing. It was just obvious, heavy steps.
Yeah.
So it did that until it was out of earshot, and that was it. But every time I would hit my light on, it would stop walking. So that by this time, I'm obviously pretty I pretty much know what's going on. I'm doing research this whole time. I started, and I'll say it 100 times over again. One of the first podcasts I started with was the Bigfoot Outlaws. And I was able to take things that was happening on my property, and then eventually in their episodes, they would talk about it, and vice versa. Something would happen. They would say something, and then I would recognize it later. But the next thing that pretty much happened is when my neighbor actually saw something, and again, he described it as he was looking out of his bedroom, or no, his kitchen window. I think he was doing dishes, something in the kitchen. And he said in the woodline, he could see 2 people in the best ghillie suits that he's ever seen. He said he could barely see them moving, but he knows they were there, is what he said to me. Still, I'm like, dude, I don't know. I don't know what it is, but I do know what it is. And I don't know why. I don't know why I would not, because this is kind of a shared experience, but him and I weren't close. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. We weren't like good buddies. We're good enough for me to run over to your house in the middle of the night with a gun. Yeah. But I'll do that.
Watch.
Right. I'll do that for anybody. But we just weren't like best friends, So yeah. I kind of regret that now. Anyway, he saw that. Another thing that happened, when I come home from work, I park outside of my gate. My whole yard, I live on 2 acres, and about an acre of it has a horse fence around it. So I park outside of the gate a lot of nights. Well, I would get off work, and right before I would get to the fence, there would be an owl, a barred owl, and it would just make one call. And it'd probably be about, I don't know, in between 30 and 50 feet away, maybe head high or whatever. And by this time, I'd already heard about the fake owls, and I'm like, that's not a real owl. So that would happen, I don't know, once or twice a week for a couple weeks. Well, I got home one night and it did it, and it was really close. It was probably 25 feet away. It was much closer. And I would say it was only like 6 feet up. And it was so close that the hair on the back of my neck and everything stood up. And I'm like, trying to get in the gate. And I get in the gate and I close it and I stand there and I'm looking around. And so I made one call. I went, woo. Well, at the exact same time, two of them hooted back. One was my height and one was on the ground. It was ground level. And it was like they were excited. They didn't do the hoot that I did, or they didn't do the hoot that they did the first time. They did my crappy response hoot back. And it was like two little kids that were excited when they did it. And I'm
So
like,
they were like
oh my
emulating
God.
you.
Yes. They were imitating my owl call back to them. Now, there's no lights out there at all. So, again, I can't see them. In fact, I've got one of those Bigfoot cutouts like everybody has, the metal ones. Well, I put it right there where I think they were, kind of like, I know you guys are there, you know. But so I got the owl calls. Another thing, this happened 3 different times. I would be standing on the porch, and I'm a smoker. So I'm out on the porch smoking, and my dogs usually, it's always the female, the middle female. This has happened 3 different times where she'll be out in the front yard and a rock will come flying out of the wood line and not hit her. It'll like bounce and slide perfectly right underneath her. The first time it happened, it landed right in between her legs. She looked at me. She looked down at the rock. She picked the rock up in her mouth and she goes, and dropped it and ran up on the porch. Well, that's happened 2 other times. Huh. And from one wood line, the closest one, like if I'm standing on my porch to the left, that's only 45, 50 feet. The other wood line, it's all the way across the yard. It's over 100 feet. So this one over here, I could kind of understand, but I don't know how they're really good at throwing rocks. I can tell you that. But that's happened 3 times. The next thing that has in all this, I wish this would flow better when I'm telling the story. I wish I could just tell it like a story, but it's not like a story. It's just been happenings, you know, and that's just really the only way I know to go about doing it.
Yeah.
But another time, and this is the first time that I'm telling this publicly, and you'll understand why, because of my ego. I've been telling people there's twice that I've been growled at. Well, that's a lie. There's 3 times I've been growled at. And this is after the owl calls. And I'm not sure exactly why they changed it up, but I pulled in from work again. I get all my stuff together. I open the door. And when I open the door, the growl from the video the other night, well, that happened right across my driveway at me. We're talking 30 feet. Well, it scared the crap out of me. In fact, I couldn't see anything at all, anything that did it. And I'm thinking, I automatically think it's them, number one. But an animal, what animal?
So what, like, about what time? I mean,
this usually everything starts happening after 10. So in between like 10 and 3, I've had activity all the way till 3 o'clock in the morning sometimes.
Okay.
But that's usually when I go to bed anyway, because I work late. But when I come, it would probably be at that time, my schedule changes some. It would probably been in between about 10 and 12 at night is when this has happened.
Okay. So when most reasonable people would be in bed as well, or sitting at home watching TV, not out in the woods getting bit by mosquitoes. Okay.
Yeah. And whoever can growl like this, I don't want to. I mean, it's just, it makes you feel very uncomfortable. It makes you feel very small, and I'll get to that. There's one time that really happened, but anyway. So I call my wife. I'm sitting there. I close the door. I call my wife and I said, "Hey, look, something just growled at me, and I don't know what it is. And it was not a dog." I said, "Bring me my gun and my flashlight, please." I'm serious. This is why I don't tell this story.
Yeah.
So, and I sat there in my truck until I saw her open the door and step out on the porch. Then I got out of my truck, looking around, turned my cell phone on, and I go through the gate and I meet her and I go and look around. Anyway, so yes, that did happen. It did scare me, and I did sit my butt in the truck until.
And I want to take a moment and say kudos to your wife for coming out to your rescue. Maybe next episode we'll have her on and hear.
Yeah,
Exactly.
the tough one.
Yeah, I had to bring the gun and the flashlight so he can get in the house again.
No, that's only happened once.
Oh, okay.
Gosh.
Just once. Okay.
Once that I'm telling y'all about anyway.
No, kudos to her. But I mean,
Well, she's a total skeptic, so it doesn't scare her at all.
But I mean, this is happening around your house. This is
Yeah.
happening, for now, since 2012.
Mhm.
What are her thoughts and feelings today?
The way she is with anything like this or
Mhm.
anything scary, ghost, demons, UFOs, aliens, you name it, she
Mhm.
does not want to have anything to do with it at all. She doesn't even want to talk about it.
Gotcha.
Because if she talks about it, it basically scares her.
It's
So
kind of like
she-
admitting to herself that
Right.
it could be real. Gotcha.
And I actually, and later on when we have a straight up woo podcast about these orbs, I actually have gotten mad with her in the past about not, because she's seen these things in the house, not being confident when she tells, I want her to back me up, but I understand why she doesn't like to openly talk about it. It's because it scares her. It scares the crap out of her. Stuff that she doesn't understand. She would just rather
dispel and
exactly.
and just do something different with her mind. Yeah, exactly.
And
Gotcha.
I get it, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think she's ever going to be my Bigfoot wingman. She'll go camping with me, but she doesn't care anything about Bigfoot. So
she's not going camping for the direct
Well, still like most people, she's going camping to camp.
Yeah,
she's not
exactly.
a nut job out there looking for Bigfoot all the time. Like
exactly. Yeah, Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Man, so Johnny, your stories around the home there and with your neighbors. I mean, it is very, very compelling. I mean, it's just downright like weird.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it gets weirder, man.
See, there we go. Even better.
Well, Johnny, I have a question before you go any further. You said your property's got a horse fence.
Right.
Is your house fenced in around it?
Yeah, it's all the way around it.
So has it ever crossed the fence? Like when it got behind the old car?
It was outside. Let's see if I can do this without messing anything up. I'll do what Joe did the other day. Hold on one second.
Now, what kind of old car are we talking about? I mean, it's like a 69, 68
no, it's an
Camaro.
Old like junk car, like a Hyundai.
Oh, okay. Now I'm guessing if it's like some, if it
was a Thunderbird or something,
Yeah, Chevelle, Mustang.
Yeah.
I might be.
GTO.
I might be prowling.
It's gone anyway. No, man, this thing was a piece of garbage.
I'm wondering what was the switch that turned the attention from your neighbor onto you. I mean, obviously, you're talking about the neighbor.
Johnny, do you have a daughter?
Yes, but she is not.
How old is she though?
She's 12.
Yep.
But all this started happening way before all that.
Yeah, but I have read many reports where they become infatuated with young girls from 8, 9 years old and up, start stalking them in their bedrooms and stuff at night.
Oh, great.
So basically, that little thing right there is my house, and that's what my fence looks like.
Okay.
It almost looks like the home plate.
The home plate, yep.
Well, on all three sides, except where my driveway is, there's woods, and the woods back here go all the way back to a large management area, and I'll get to that later on. But and I'm almost to like the really good part of this, and I'm sorry I had to do this in notes like this, but
hey, no,
a buddy of mine suggested I do it like this because I would never be able to remember as much stuff has happened. So we're at the growl at the truck. The first time I saw something that kind of convincing, but I don't really call it a sighting, was basically I was standing on the porch, the same side of the house to my left, that wood line. We had just bought brand new lights they're rope lights. So I can turn my front porch light off, and there's like dim lights, okay? These little rope lights that go up. I'm sure people know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So we had them up for a couple days, and I'm standing there and I'm looking, and on the front of this tree that I've looked at 1,000 times before, there's this big dark spot on it. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, is that a raccoon or something? And I start looking, and there's also next to the tree another dark spot, like a dark blob. And I'm looking, and then all of a sudden I see eye shine, but it's not bright at all. And when my eyes adjust, it looks like, let's see what hand. It was left hand was around a tree like this, and it was looking, and the way the eyes looked, it wasn't super bright, but it almost looked like it was squinting his eyes, or like it was looking up like a dog would when it's in trouble. It looks up like you.
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't. It's not good enough to say, hey, that's a Bigfoot. I ran inside, got all my stuff. By this time, I've already got thermal, night vision, $200 flashlights, the whole 9 yards. I run outside, and of course, it's gone. There's nothing there. So I don't really count that, but that was the first time I saw something where I was like, I think that's probably what that was.
So you say eye shine. Like
yeah.
A reflection or
yes,
a
more
glow?
of a reflection. Not like people talk about where it's self-illuminating.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It looked like eye shine, but not as bright as eye shine.
Gotcha.
So it's like real dull.
Just based off your dim lights.
Right, basically. So, and I say that just because usually I leave that out because it's not it wasn't even enough convincing for me, but I wrote it down. I think it probably was one, but I did not get it a good enough look to say it was. But that was the first time I was like, that was really something, and I couldn't figure. It is what it is. It looked like one to me, but not good enough to where I could call it a sighting. Okay, so this is pretty much where everything started to turn. 2019. I had to have 2 different surgeries. I had to have a neck surgery and a rotator cuff surgery.
Okay.
I had a disc replaced in my neck. Well, I was home for probably about 7 months. Well, while I was recovering, I basically dumped all the spare time I had into this stuff, trying to find something, trying to get an answer, trying to see one.
Yeah.
So, during the day, when I got a little better and I could walk around, I started doing daily walks back in the woods. I found more structures. I found 3 big logs that are probably about this big around, and they're probably about 4 feet high, just shoved into the ground. There's another picture I sent you of it was basically a stick between 2 big boulders and then diagonal sticks or whatever. So I started finding more structures, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So the better I got, I actually got impatient, and I do not I don't necessarily regret it, but I do not suggest people do this. I got more aggressive because I got more impatient. I wanted to see this thing. So I basically started doing nightly armed patrols, and I would go in these areas where I found these structures, and I would make noise, bright flashlight, thermal with an AR, and I'd go around stomping around, moving things, being loud, whatever. I did that for a couple of weeks. That and it was kind of exercise too, just something to really do.
Yep.
But so I did that for probably about 2 weeks, maybe every other night, maybe sometimes more. Well, one night I did it, and nothing ever happened on these little armed patrol things that I did, and never had anything happen. Well, one night after doing that, the next morning I woke up and I was working on my kid's treehouse all day long. Probably an hour before sunset, I hang everything up for the day. I'm like, all right, good to go. I'm done working. I'm sitting on the porch, and right behind my kid's treehouse, outside of the fence, and on that side of the house, you go over the fence and it goes downhill, pretty steep. Well, back there on the property line, there's a tree, and it's going daytime tree shake. Nothing fell out of the tree, nothing like that. Somebody or something was shaking the hell out of this tree. But
any wind, any weather?
No.
Okay.
No. Just one tree.
One tree.
And it's going nuts.
Okay.
It's like that. But I can't see the bottom 10 feet of this tree because it's downhill. So I jump off the porch, I run out there to my fence, and I could see pretty much every bit of the tree. I don't see anything. I run inside, and I've got a parabolic. In fact, I got one right here. I had just got this little cheap parabolic. I get it. I run outside the same area with all the brush and stuff where I heard the stomping. I could hear deep, heavy breathing, and it was very faint, but I could hear it. And I tried to get my wife to listen to it. She's like, I don't hear anything, blah, blah, blah. So that's pretty much, I actually went out there, walk around. I don't see anything. 10, 20 minutes later, it gets dark. Well, I'd already decided after that happened, obviously, I'm going to do my little armed patrol, right? So I get all my stuff ready. I've got a thermal. I've got my flashlight. I've got a pistol, and I've got my parabolic. I got it all ready to go. I step outside on the front porch, and my dogs go nuts and go straight to that same fence to where the tree shake was.
Okay.
So I'm like, oh, it's on now. So I run across the yard. I go out of the gate, and I go around, and there's a trailhead. And I come to the top, and I look around, and I don't see anything. And this is where this pine thicket is. Now, before this, I had been finding animal bones in this area where these pine saplings are. It's about a 10-foot circle, just straight up pine straw, perfect circle. But I'm finding bones in there. Well, that's where this area is, and that's where this trail, it runs right next to it. So I start going down the trail, and all of a sudden rocks start hitting all around me. And I'm like, oh, crap. So I back up, and I'm standing there, and I'm like, I'm kind of scared, but now I'm getting a little pissed. Somebody just threw rocks at me. Sorry for the cuss words, guys.
No, that's fine.
But so I'm like, no. I'm not going to be scared out of this. This is my shot. So I start walking again. I get to the same spot, and rocks started hitting all around me. Now, nothing ever hits me. It's just hitting all around me. And it's almost like somebody takes a handful of rocks and throws it, but they just don't hit me. They hit all around.
Yeah.
Well, I yelled. I said, if you hit me with a rock, I'm going to shoot. And I stood there, and nothing happened. And I didn't hear anything. I did not see anything. So I make my way down this trail, and I'm pretty scared at this point. And I'm out there with my light doing 360s spinning. like, this thing's not gonna sneak up on me,
Yep.
So I make it back to that little area where all the bones were. I don't see anything. I come walking back out, and the only thing I really heard, it was no louder than a mouse or a rat or whatever, but it did sound like I was being paced off to my right. So I stop and I turn around and I walk back down into the trail again towards the woods, and the same thing. But I can't. It's not super thick, but I still can't see anything, and that's all I hear. I'm like, no, that's not it. There's no way that's it. It'd be louder. So I make my way all the way back to the top of the trail, and from there I can look and I can see all behind my neighbor's yard. And I got my thermal out and I'm looking, and I spot something on the thermal. It's hot and it's little, and it's on the side of a tree, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, all right, that's a squirrel or something. Well, something bigger, but it's behind all these woods, the woods behind it. So the thermal image is real messed up, but I can tell it's a larger thermal image. And when it pops into frame, the squirrel or whatever jumps off the tree and runs through the yard. And I'm standing there looking at this thing like, oh yeah, I got it now. Well, from 30 feet from where I just come from the wood line, I guess the one that I was chasing, it growls at me. And there's no animal that I've ever heard that sounds like what I got a video of the other day, except a lot closer. So I'm standing there with the thermal and it growls, and I'm actually recording this whole thing, and there's something really weird in that too. And I turn and look and I say, and I'm petrified at this point. And I look over there, I said, okay, I got it. I am leaving. I'm just looking at your buddy over here, and that's it. And I wasn't even really looking. I was pretending like I was looking, but I'm over there. I was so scared I didn't turn my flashlight on. That's how scared I was. And I'm not, and I hate when people say this, but I helped invade a country, Yeah. So it's not real. I don't get scared real easily. In fact, sometimes I feel like something's wrong with me because it takes a lot to really scare me, and I like it. But it takes a lot. But and I timed it. I could only stand there for 3 minutes, and I backed out and I left and I went inside. And that was the day. Even all the stuff leading up to this, I'm like, I'm convinced that that's what this is. This is a Sasquatch. So after that happens, let's see, tree shade, not a growl, peanut butter. So I knew I had kind of messed up. To me, I had messed up. I'd been too aggressive, and that's not what I wanted to do. I did not want to scare these things away. Okay, I didn't want to be out there because I was on the fence between, I think it's a Sasquatch, but I haven't seen it, so maybe it is a person. So I kind of rode the fence for a very long time. So I gave it about a week, and I didn't do anything. And I took some peanut butter, a brand new jar of peanut butter, never been opened, and another little container filled with peanut butter, a little bitty Tupperware thing. And I took it out there and I laid the peanut butter in the same spot where I think it was probably standing in the wood line, and I put that peanut butter on top of it. Well, a couple days later, I come back, and obviously the little bitty container, there's no peanut butter in it. The peanut butter's gone, but the weird thing is the cap's there. The cap's laying on the ground, and the peanut butter jar is gone. So whoever took it, they took the jar off, they took the lid off, and left that, and then took off with the peanut butter. I've never found that jar. That's not, it's just something that happened. So shortly after that, on that same trail that you have to go into where the pine thicket is, I found, and I'll post it, I think I've posted this about 100 times. There's 3 rocks on the trail, like, I don't know, a foot or so apart from each other, laying on that trail. And the funny thing, nobody's living there at this point. The neighbors had moved out, and nobody had been going back there at all.
Okay.
And crazy part, the correlation with that is shortly after that, my wife, and she's the one that pointed it out to me, she found 3 rocks just like that lined up in the middle of our chicken coop. And all it is a chain link fence on all 4 sides plus the top, and there's a coop inside. And then right in the middle of their little yard there was 3 rocks laid out just like the ones on the trail. I don't know what that means. Maybe that was speculation. This is mine, this is yours type deal. I don't know. That's all. It's just what I found. I'm gonna kind of skip that. There's 100 different things. Just go straight to the sighting. And I talked to. I was trying to figure out what month. It was last year. I think it was October. Levi. I sent him a text right when it happened, and it was probably 2:33 in the morning, and he actually answered. But I'll try to get the later date or the actual date on that if he can pull that text up. Basically, what happened is I'm sitting like always on my front porch, and down my driveway kind of comes. If I'm looking straight out into my yard, my driveway kind of comes at an angle across my front yard, but outside the fence. I'm just sitting there staring off to space, smoking a cigarette, and plain as day. And I don't know if this was intentional or if they don't get the concept of silhouetting themselves. But it walked straight down the middle of my driveway, and I could see its full right side, and it looked like you remember that show in the 80s, early 90s, maybe, Beauty and the Beast?
Yeah.
You remember that show?
Yep.
Used to come on. That's kind of what the hair looked like. It was like 1980s wrestlers' hair. Big rock band hair.
Like the Macho Man.
Right. But it's like poofy.
Yeah. Big teased hair.
Right. Big hair.
Angie, you got some photos of 80s teased hair?
You know it.
Okay. So we might have to have some of those photos to compare.
Aquanet days.
Aquanet. Okay.
So I swear to God, that's what this thing looks like.
And how big? Like how tall? I mean, is it?
It's well over 6 feet tall. Probably in between 6 and 7 feet tall. And I did not realize how big it was. Now we're talking about silhouette, okay? But it's full silhouette from shins up. I see its whole body, and I see its right side, and I could even see its jaw was stuck out, like how much further its jaw stuck out than a normal person. Well, I'm looking at it. It's probably about 3 seconds is when I see the right-hand side of it walking. And I stand up, and as soon as I stand up, it turns towards me. And that's when all doubts were over with, because this thing was people say, you hear all the time, every bit of 4 feet wide. This thing was every bit of 4 feet wide. And what it did is, when I first see it, I see the right-hand side of it, right side profile, and it's walking. I stand up, and it never skips a step. Its legs are moving the same way he started, but his whole upper body turns towards me like this, but he's still walking. And it was like, I think it's probably maybe around 6 seconds, like 3 seconds of sideways and then 3 seconds straight on. And the weirdest.
Patty did.
Now, did you make it? Did you make any noise?
No, it was more. Did I make any noise?
Yeah, I mean, because obviously, you stood up and he turned, so somehow he caught your movement or heard you. I mean, that's just me. I mean,
the front porch. This is why I think it's intentional. The front porch light's on. I sit there since this has been going on for years.
Yeah.
Usually, what happens is they'll do something out there and it'll get my attention, and then I'll run and try to figure out what it was.
Yeah.
I've been chasing these things for a couple of years now. I've spent however many hours and money and everything else looking for this thing. And
Yeah.
this jerk just walks right down the middle of my driveway like it's nothing. And the craziest part about it is my dogs did not move. All three of my dogs were on the porch. They didn't even act like anything was going on at all. Like they did not move at all. They didn't hear. Now I couldn't hear anything either. And but yeah, it was about 6 seconds altogether that I saw it.
But how far away do you think it?
I can measure, and actually I should do that, and I should have done that before. Probably.
But inside of 100 yards.
Oh
50
yeah,
yards.
60 yards.
Okay.
50, 60 yards.
Okay.
But
Wow.
but
wow.
my neighbors. You're looking at my driveway, and then there's some pine trees, and then behind the pine trees, my neighbor's yard, and then it's their house. Well, they got lights all over the place.
Yeah.
So as it walks in front, I mean, I just see the whole silhouette just perfectly. And I still, till this day, I still say that's not good enough, because I want a daylight sighting. I want to see the hair glisten. I want to have a sighting like you. That's what I'm going for. But that was more than enough. I
mean, really, at this point, I mean, here, what time of night was this? Early morning? So 2, 3.
Yeah,
3?
it's probably in between. I would say 1 and Levi's gonna look for the text, but it was late, in between 1:30 and 3, maybe.
So after midnight.
Oh yeah,
Randy Savage at 60 yards is walking across your yard,
right?
Flowing hair and big muscular,
right?
And that's not enough for you to say this is good enough. I mean, you're still wanting more.
Yeah, well,
you know, I mean, 60 yards. I mean, that's danger close to me. I mean, the device that ultimately took my leg, while I'm an amputee, was at 60 yards. So I mean, yeah, man, that's just that's.
Well, I'm not gonna lie, I'm convinced, and I know a lot of people say, well, I don't care if people believe me, and I'm not trying to get evidence. I am trying to prove it. And that's it. I'm trying to prove it. And I want video of it. And and that was the end of last year. I'm totally convinced. And I've got other recordings. I've got the audios, several different types of yells, the war cries that they make, which is nuts.
See, what's great, Angie, with Jonny is, this is more than one episode, right? I mean, this is, these are multiple episodes. We have with just you, and things that have happened here in the past. But gosh, I mean, you're having things going on this past week. Well, while you're,
well, now I've tracked them. Now I know. Now I think I'm very, very confident. I know where they're staying during the day. And that's where I don't want to make this any longer than it already is. Yeah. We'll go into the current stuff later. But we're well beyond. I'm well beyond. Do they exist? I know they exist.
Yeah.
And I'm not doing it for money. In fact, part of this is for my wife. I want to be able to go, hey, look, remember all the times you made fun of me? All the times you didn't believe me. But I really do.
This justifies the thermal.
Right. This justifies the thousands of dollars I've spent on cameras and thermals.
Oh, man. Yeah.
But that's the goal, man, is I want to prove that that's what's going on around here. And I'm also I want to put together what it is they do, how far they go. I'm really, all this stuff it's not as, I don't think it's so much as they come in and wow, you just random, they've got to live somewhere. They stay somewhere during the day, and I think I found it, and I've put stuff up on that, but I'm just going to keep going until, I got proof good enough for whatever. and I don't care. I've got a job. I got a good job.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna retire where I'm at. Probably it's all good. I'm not doing this
Exactly.
for money. You know,
Yeah.
if I was
Yeah,
doing it for
exactly.
money, then
Yeah, you're not in it for fame, and you know
right.
what?
If I
You
was doing
don't
it for
need.
money, I'd be in a tent right now instead of my garage. So
Yeah, yeah. You know, so this past week, someone asked me about like the first podcast, and Joe, what are you expecting to do with this? I said, you know what? I've already accomplished it. You know, I told my story,
right,
and I got it off. I got it off my chest. I got it out there. I don't, I don't have to feel like, oh, I wonder if I can trust, Bigfoot USA or Sasquatchers Anonymous. You know what? I
right.
found a community with you and Angie and the Encounter Brigade where I can share these things. Now, and it's kind of funny. Like Angie was talking about the Smoky, was it Smoky Mountain Bigfoot
Yeah.
convention going on, and
Hmm.
and guest speaker this and that, and I'm like, yeah, I don't, it doesn't, it wouldn't entice me to be no guest speaker nowhere. You know what? So what,
Right.
my normal 9 to 5 job, we do trade shows all the time. I mean, and this is like before COVID shut down all the trade shows last year. Heck, you know what, I had a trade show we went to, and brought the Monster Energy girls. Yeah, big sponsor of ours. You know what? I'm like, yeah. You know what? I'm good with that. I don't see the Monster girls ever going to a Sasquatch convention, unless I ask Monster and say, hey, I would like them to come, and I
They're
have a good.
actually a monster and Sasquatch. I mean, you would think
Yeah.
they'd jump right on it, you know?
Yeah. No, well, actually, so we're gonna have in the future, we're gonna have a good friend of mine, who does work for Monster Energy, and he's an avid bow hunter up in Kentucky, and he's gonna share a little bit of Appalachia experiences that he's had, and um, yeah, and he works for Monster Energy, and so
Right,
we're gonna, yeah, so we've already talked, and so he's gonna put together a little prize pack, you might say, a little swag prize for a lucky listener, because we just kind of had this little idea of him just sharing some of his stuff. Now, he's an avid bow hunter. He's like me.
right,
I mean, he lives in one state, travels to another, just to go bow hunting. And folks, when you do that, you're committed. If it's more than one tank of gas to get there, you're committed. you
right,
know Much like I think our, the Bigfoot, the Sasquatch, the field investigators, I mean, there are guys who are going to the swamps, Louisiana, to Florida, wherever,
mhm,
to the mountains. I mean, these folks are committed.
right.
Very much like what you're doing, and that's why, every week I enjoy seeing and hearing more of your findings.
Well, I'll say, let me say this too.
Go ahead.
I got lucky, man. This all fell in my lap. I am not the super Sasquatch investigator. I didn't know anything when I started. I listened to other people. I listened to the Bigfoot Outlaws a lot, and that helped me figure things out around here. Now, I did put a lot of stuff together. I'm making my own progress, but this is repeatable. This is something. The number one thing I think people, the biggest mistake I think people are making is they're going there. Hey, there's this place here and so with a bunch of sightings. Let's go there for 2 days, and then let's go over here for a day. Let's go over here. You've got to be. It's best if you really want to get serious with this and really look into it. Is like they do with every animal. Go to find a known habitat or somewhere you think is a known habitat and just focus on that one area. And that's all I've done is follow everything that's happened here back to a very large management area. I found a very small portion of that area that's cut off from everything. And I think that's where they're staying. And I've got pretty good evidence to show that. So, it's not rocket science. I didn't invent any of this, but I
Yeah.
think people need to I do think people need to just try to focus their energy into one spot that they think is viable instead of going to a bunch of different hot spots. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah.
As a
Yeah.
as a Sasquatch expert that I
Yeah.
am.
You know,
Well, Johnny, I wanted you to you touched on the peanut butter, but what about the one that you did find? Can you talk about that? That was the one that amazed me so much.
Yeah, when I'll try to make this quick because we're going long. I've put peanut butter out, I guess, like 4 times so far over the past 3 years, maybe. And one of the jars that I put out, which one are you talking about? The one I found or the one that left?
The
off the
one that
tree?
you found put back together with something looked like it took its finger and
Oh yeah.
cleaned out the jar, then put the lid back on it.
There's I left it on the first kind of half butt sighting that I told y'all with the eye shine, where I really didn't see much. That same area. In fact, that's why I put that over there. Is I put there was peanut butter in there, and I threw it over there over the side of the fence. Well, after I don't know how long, maybe a week, it disappeared. Well, that was, I think it was 2.5 years ago. Well, a couple of weeks ago, probably longer than that, a couple of months ago, it was still cold. I can't remember why I did it, but I was looking back behind the chicken coop for some reason. I can't remember now why. Anyway, I'm looking back there, and there's this little area. It kind of looks like a natural hiding spot, blind, if you will. And I walked back there, and I've been in this area 100 times. I mean, since then, probably over that. In fact, I spent a day back there digging this huge hole for in the same area. But that peanut butter jar that had been gone for 2 years, 2.5 years, showed up back in the same spot with the lid on it. And it's not chewed on, and it's empty. I don't know. There's no telling, man. And I had another one that I screwed into the side of a tree, and it was after that one. And it stayed up there for a month and a half, 2 months. Something unscrewed it from the side of the tree and took it. It didn't break the cap. It didn't move anything. There's some little bitty rough kind of scratch. It's been out there for 2 months, so something probably, obviously, animals tried to get into it, but something unscrewed it from the tree. Now, raccoons are smart. That could have happened, but I got some things that I've bought, and I'm gonna rig a camera and make it to where they can't get it off unless you got hands. I'm gonna do that better, but that's kind of how it goes. I'm just evolving my technique as it goes.
You'll be able to share the pictures of the peanut butter jar with the lid screwed back on it, and you can see the fingers, like finger marks in it. You have to picture
that's
that.
The one I had my dog sniff it too. I had it in the bag, and I made a little video to see if they reacted. There wasn't really much of anything weird. One of them didn't like it that much, but I can't remember which one. It wasn't anything obvious.
But it is pretty intriguing to see actual finger marks as they were scooping it out. Right. And it's not, from the picture that I saw, I mean, it didn't look like itty bitty little raccoon hands, the little claws, I mean, these were
look like fingers.
Oh yeah. So that is, I mean, that, when I saw that, I'm like, oh,
there's just weird.
That is weird.
There's just weird stuff like that all the time, man. Yep. I find rocks, pieces of concrete from back here, from a project I had about this big, and I have my truck parked in the front yard, and after digging this hole and pieces of concrete, I was making something. The next day, I go out to leave, and there's a piece of concrete sitting on the bed of my truck. And the thing I'm making is a hiding spot to hide and try to catch something. And it's almost like, I know what you're doing.
Yep. Yep. Oh, man. Crazy.
Yeah.
Well, man, tonight's been a lot of great information, a lot of great some of the history, Johnny, from what got you started, and
Yeah.
I mean we haven't even heard it all. But yeah,
No,
we're go.
and it's honestly like the first time. This is literally the first time I've sat down and told it all or tried
That's
to tell
good.
it all at one time. So
And I'm glad you made notes. I mean, because that's important.
yeah,
Documentation. We hear it in the military and the law enforcement community. I mean, even the medical community. Documentation. I mean, you know what? And it's great that you're doing that. Because
right.
it gives you a chance to go back and look at your notes. Um, but so tonight we actually got to play around a little bit and make a intro outro video, and so we'll play that on our exit here. And um I kind of really dig the soundtrack. Is something that I think we all kind of had a little bit of collaboration on. But Angie, the real master of that is someone, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Shout
So
out to Jeff Williamson.
yeah,
He
Thank
used
yeah,
you, Jeff. You
his
are
incredible
amazing.
talents. He wrote the music, and he
yep,
was able to put together all of our ideas and make the intro happen. And um, also, Jeff is a paranormal investigator, so he's kind of part of the team. He just kind of
right,
likes to work in the background. He doesn't want to,
yeah.
be out front. But
Now I
uh,
can't wait to start talking about some of the paranormal stuff, just because working in hunting and going out all over. You know, it's not all 5-star resorts and all that. Sometimes you're in old homes and
mhm.
whatnot. And I will tell you what, there has been
Yeah,
some
you've got some
weird,
crazy stories.
yeah, some weird stuff that
Yeah,
that has happened from some hunting locations. And you know what, it is. So hopefully one of these places. Yeah, I mean, I have access for us to go and check out one time, and I have never slept in this place. I've had friends that have, and it's weird. Those will be some good episodes to talk about. But no, Jeff, thank you so much for the music and all that. And we'll be playing that here on our exit. But I think man, we just went over an hour and 17 minutes. And
Oh,
I think for Johnny's spotlight this week, I think this is a good part one, probably a good break for it. We can always do part
yeah.
2 and 3. And
No,
you
we're
know
good. We're good on me, man. Honestly, I am. I want to share my stuff, but that's not. I mean, I've got a Facebook page. I put some of it on our YouTube channel, but that's not what this group is about. Obviously, just for people to know who I am and what I'm doing, I've got to tell my story. But that's not really what all this is about. This is about other people. People like me, people like you, like Angie.
yeah,
Everybody's. It's somewhere where people can share.
yeah,
And I mean,
yeah,
obviously I'm gonna put up stuff I'm doing. But I want to make it. We all agreed, and other people who are involved that aren't on the front lines necessarily all agreed that this has got to be about the people. You know what I'm saying? This
yep,
can't be anything else. So I'm glad I
yep.
did get to tell it for the first time. It probably came out awkward and terrible, but that's all right. I'm not a
no, you
professional.
did a
No,
great
So
job.
yeah, yeah.
I appreciate it. Appreciate it. But yeah, man, I'm glad we got to do it. Angie, thank you very much for
Thank
listening to me
you.
for an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I love Bigfoot stories. They're
Yeah.
never boring.
No, they are not.
All righty, folks. Well,
Right.
let's go ahead and wrap up for this one, and then we'll exit out with some of the video and cool music. And you know, we'll be posting. When episode 3 of Counter Brigade podcast comes back on. You know, um, we kind of like the idea of maybe trying to do this weekly, but obviously, we all have real jobs and real
Right.
lives, and and families and vacations and things that we have to
Hmm.
do and whatnot. So it's not like we're being paid to be on the air uh, doing all this, but it's great sharing some of these stories. And if you have any have any sightings, stories, or anything that you'd like to share with us, please reach out. They can email us, Angie. What's our email address that is best to reach us at?
encounterbrigade@gmail.com. And then Johnny, what's the Proton one?
It's
The
the same.
Encounter.
No, the Proton Mail is
Yeah.
just Encounter Brigade.
Okay.
No the.
That's right. That's where our Gmail account is also.
Okay.
Okay.
Good
Well,
to
folks.
go.
All righty. Well, man, I can't wait to do it again. Talk a little bit more about some of your recent stuff, Johnny. I mean, it's
Well,
pretty intriguing and whatnot.
I'm hoping your one story in particular pans out that may have a video involved with your special somebody that saw something super crazy.
Yeah.
I'm more excited about that than anything.
Yeah. This person's off spring bear hunting, filming. So we're working on all that. Kind of have to wait in a little bit lull of the seasons and productions type stuff, but
Right.
but yeah, you know what?
We have exciting stuff coming.
Yeah, I know, that's so funny. I mean, that is so hilarious, and so yeah. I mean, before we go, I mean, so this past weekend, I got to go down to the Palmetto Championship, which is a PGA Tour stop, right? And I got an opportunity to caddy for one of the players, right? So my friend who is there caddying for him, there originally, he's one, I had to steal a golf cart while I was at the course. I mean, so this course, Congaree, it's in Ridgeland, South Carolina, and it's out in the middle of nowhere, and but it's a beautiful golf course, and we got to a point where I was already halfway into the course, and anyways, I ended up stealing a golf cart that was there, and I drive and I find my buddy, and he goes, "Hey man, do and he goes, man, what, are you out here, squatching, and I was like, "Hey," he says that right in front of like all the pros and the PGA Tour officials and whatnot.
My man.
Yeah, and so I ended up like carrying the bag for the player for the last hole on 18, and we're walking up, and I was like, man, this is so one thing in golf, I really enjoy the walk up the 18th hole, no matter what course, because that's the end of your round, and this player, he's from Austin, Texas, right? And so he starts asking me the question. And I goes, "So what's up with the Bigfoot?" And so so we're walking. I end up telling them, and then the other players who are so there's 3 in this group. They hear the other 2. They hear and they come over and they're listening, and they're like, "Man, that's unbelievable," And yeah, I'm like, "Well, man, you guys are here to hit a golf ball. Let's keep it moving,"
Right.
But it was fun, But anyways, just I was like, "Oh, great! Now we got players on the PGA Tour that knows my Bigfoot sighting."
Hey, Captain Sasquatch there.
Yeah, exactly. So, but it's all good. It's all good, man. Angie, I'm seriously looking at the calendar, trying to figure out, my wife and kids would be interested in going up that Smoky Mountain Bigfoot conference.
Yeah.
I think it'd be neat just to kind of see what kind of literature and stuff is out there. I don't know if it's like a Comic-Con, or I mean, I've never, not that I've been to any of those.
I've never been to one either, so I don't know what they're all like. So.
I've been to hunting and fishing expos, Archery Trade Association show, convention, the SHOT Show, which is firearm industry, even automotive stuff. So I have not been in a room with a bunch of squatchers. So
I think it's speakers all day.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. It will be interesting. So,
I'm looking forward to the she squatchers.
See,
she.
They actually
all women.
Okay.
And they're
Yeah.
very, very informative.
That's good. That's good.
I've actually talked to them through Messenger and sent them our first podcast and stuff. And
Oh,
actually,
really?
yeah, because I contacted them. They were talking about getting some feedback here. They were talking about remote viewing and being able to literally put investigators in spots where they are, and then it wound up being true, and people got evidence and stuff like that. They were on they were on Bigfoot Odyssey.
Okay.
I don't know, maybe a month ago or something. Just look through, but it's stuff I really don't know much about, but it's pretty interesting, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
they've
Gotcha.
actually done stuff to where they've helped find dead bodies and stuff like that. I mean, they actually have abilities, you know. So
Wow.
and
That's pretty good.
yeah, it's pretty
Pretty good.
cool stuff, man. So they're
All
really interesting.
Good deal. All righty,
All right.
folks.
Y'all,
Well-
y'all watch Jeff's work
Here
or
we
listen to
All
Jeff's
right,
work.
All right. Here
The
you go.
intro and
Folks.
the outro. See
Okay.
y'all later.
Bye-bye.
If suddenly there was a threat to this world from some other species, from another planet.
I was spotting down the firing range for several shooters when all of a sudden I saw a large, hairy creature walking from right to left.
We also know there are known unknowns. That is to say, we know there are some things we do not know. But there are also unknown unknowns. The ones we don't know, we don't know.
Encounter Brigade, welcome to the team.